Welcome to Palo Alto Networks Machine Learning Next-Gen Firewall Deployment for Lab or Testing. Phase 4, Deployment. To complete the deployment, you'll need to have completed all steps included in the activation email. This is not a best practices guide and should not be used as a blueprint for production deployments. Many elements of this lab are designed to expose administrators to the many different features within the Machine Learning Next-Gen Firewall. Not completing some of the optional items may result in the inability to complete future exercises. The actual time to complete Phase 4 tasks is more than 1 hour. To decrease runtime, some of the video has been accelerated, which is noted by the timer icon. It's a good idea, if you're following along, to pause when you see the timer. At this point in the lab, you need to have completed all the tasks in Phase 3. Your firewall should be deployed in line with 3 zones: Internet, LAN, and Wi-Fi. The next-gen firewall should be configured for automatic content updates and a baseline set of policies. The final phase is deployment. In Phase 4, we'll connect and monitor the firewall using the logs. We'll interpret the logs to create scan exclusions. We'll review some basic filter syntax. For some advanced testing, we'll configure DNS security, non-standard ports, and user ID. We'll review URL filtering for block pages. We'll use the application ID policy wizard. The final step will be to review the console components used for daily management. If you're using a physical firewall, go ahead and connect the cables as documented in the deployment summary. If you're using a virtual firewall, go to the hypervisor and select a virtual machine. Connect the existing virtual interfaces, making sure they're set to connect during boot. After connecting the interfaces, return to the console and refresh the Interfaces widget. Now that you've verified physical connectivity, refresh the system resources. Note the session count. Go to the Monitor and Session browser to see each individual session. Note that session tracking can also be done by application. Take a few minutes to explore the traffic and threat logs. Use the traffic log to make sure that no traffic from LAN to Internet is being blocked at this time. After using the traffic log to validate that traffic is flowing and not being blocked, go to the threat log. The lab domain controller is setting off the scan alarm because it's reaching out to multiple DNS servers. The action is alert, so no traffic is being impacted. But this alert can easily be resolved by editing the zone profile. Go to the zone protection profile and select Internal. And under Reconnaissance Protection, we're going to exclude the IP address of the domain controllers or DNS servers. After adding the exclusions, commit your changes. Return to the Monitor and Threat Logs page. Click the Receive Time to populate the filter. By default, the filter is populated with less than or equal to. Change the L to a G for greater than or equal to. Click the Play button to apply the filter. Note that no new events have been recorded and that the alert has been remediated. Go ahead and check the URL filtering and wildfire submission logs. After a few hours of burn-in, go to the Policies and Security page. You can make adjustments to your liking for the security page. By clicking on the column heading, you can adjust the column width, as well as choose which columns are displayed. To view the applications being discovered, go to an active policy and click on the hyperlink under Apps Seen. The application usage page displays summary information for the policy. Take a few minutes to explore the usage statistics for your policies. Another great resource for information is the ACC. The Network Activity tab displays application and user activity, source IP and destination IP activity, as well as geographic source and destination information. Take a moment to explore the ACC. While checking the threat logs, I noticed that my personal VPN software is triggering as spyware because it uses an internet proxy. By clicking on the magnifying glass, I can bring up additional detail. By selecting the actual line item for the traffic, I can see that it's going to edge.surfeasy.com. Copy the fully qualified domain name. Close the window and go to the Objects Anti-Spyware Security Policies. Select each of your cloned policies and go to the DNS Exceptions tab. Paste in the fully qualified domain name. Repeat the steps for your other policy. Once completed, go ahead and commit a change. Click on the Monitor tab and return to the threat logs. Select the receive time, again changing less than equals to greater than or equals to, and applying the filter. Verify the traffic is no longer being dropped. Application ID works independent of port. Let's look at our anything outbound rule, where our service and URL category is set to any. In order to support custom applications, or for security reasons, applications are often configured to use non-standard ports. You can use the rule name to search the traffic log for additional information. Select a rule name hyperlink to populate the filter. Replace the policy name with anything outbound. Note that all the traffic displayed still has an application associated with it, even though it's running on a non-standard port. Let's resolve the stun application. One of the first things you want to do is use the global search to see if there are any existing rules or groups. As you can see, we have a member of an application filter. We also have a member of an application group. By clicking through the chain, you can view all the relevant detail on where this application is being used. We're going to go to the General Networking Apps policy, highlight the policy, and click Add. This is going to create a new policy below the existing rule. Create an outbound rule as you've done before from the internal zones to the internet. For the application, we're going to select Stun, but under Service and URL category, we're going to change Application Default to Any. This will apply all the same protections for the Stun application, but allow it to run on any port. Because it's using a non-standard port, it's a good idea to go ahead and use a stricter group profile. Clear the policy filter to view and validate the new rule. Once you're satisfied with your changes, go ahead and commit the change. Note that after completing the commit, the rule is already active and has seen 4 hits. Return to the traffic log page. Note that the Comcast webmail application is consistently using port 143. I can see that it's a TCP reset from the client, which tells me it's TCP. I could further validate that by clicking on the magnifying glass and seeing the detailed log view, and seeing that the IP protocol is TCP. Let's go back to our policies page, and we're going to create a new rule. Place custom port policies under policies using default application services. Go ahead and create a new outbound interzone policy. For source, select your internal zones. For destination, go ahead and select internet. When you get to the Service and URL Category tab, choose Select in the drop-down and add a new service. Name the new service and select TCP or UDP. Specify the destination port. Under Actions, select a strict group profile and select your log forwarding profile. Commit the change. The last policy will be for Tomcat SSL running on port 8443. Repeat the process. Add the custom port policy after any rules or policies using application defaults. Name the new rule and change the rule type to interzone. Create an outbound policy using the SSL application. Again, under Service, we're going to use Select, Add, and add a new custom service. Select TCP and port 8443. Under Actions, go ahead and select a strict group profile and select your log forwarding profile. Commit your changes. You can reset a policy's hit counter to monitor its activity. If you don't have access to a directory server, you can use a text editor to create an XML file in the following format. mapping usernames to IP addresses. You can also define groups in the file. Define all users within the single login section. Groups are defined within the Groups section. Once complete, copy the contents of your custom user import XML. From an authenticated GUI session, change the URL suffix to API- and refresh. This will open up the XML API screen. Select User ID and paste in the contents of your XML. Review the contents to make sure it was pasted successfully and click Submit. You should receive a success. You can confirm the upload by opening an SSH session to the management interface, signing in with your lab admin account. When using the command line, you can use the Tab key to assist entering commands. Use the command show user IP-user-mapping all. This will display the current user to IP mappings. Remember to exit the CLI. Return to the management GUI and go to the traffic logs. You'll now note that IPs are associated with users. You can now include users within your policy definitions. User information will also begin populating the ACC. The URL filtering log will report on web categories currently being blocked. You can change the behavior by going to Objects, URL Filtering, Security Profiles. Click on the policy you would like to edit, scroll to the category, in this case it's questionable, and change the site access actions from block to allow. Commit the updated policy. Let's take a few minutes and review the user experience for URL filtering. I'm going to attempt to access a gambling website. You can see that the page is blocked, but it's not very user-friendly. A quick check of the URL filtering logs confirms the behavior. Because we're not doing SSL decryption, we need to open an SSH session to the management interface and use the command line to enable the SSL proxy for injection of the block page. After logging in, enter configuration mode. Use the command set device config setting SSL-decrypt URL-proxy yes and hit return. Commit your changes. Return to your browser and refresh the tab with the previously blocked page. This time the user is presented with a web page blocked. It includes the username, the URL, and the category or reason for blocking the page. For some categories, we may want to present the user the option to continue to visit a web page after accepting an agreement. Create a clone of your current URL filtering policy. Name the policy, then scroll down to the gambling category. Change the site access options from block to continue. Go to your security profile groups. Create a clone of your default policy. Click on the link to the clone. Name the new security profile group and change the URL filtering profile to the new continue profile. To limit the number of users who are allowed to continue to the site, we're going to create a new policy. Clone the web browsing default policy, but select the order to put before the rule. Update the rule name, and then go to the Source tab. If you completed the User ID lab, under Source User, you'll have both groups. If you type the prefix of your domain, you'll also see all the users that have been populated into User ID. For this rule, we're simply going to select Known Users. Known Users includes all users with an IP mapping. Actions tab, update the group profile to the new security group. Commit the changes. Return to the Block Page tab and copy the tab. The new page includes an option for the user to continue. On the Security Profiles page, select the Management Interface rule in the Apps scene. The Application Policy Wizard makes it easy to add discovered applications to the current rule, existing rules, or create a new rule. Next, we're going to use the apps discovered by the domain clients rule to create a new rule. As you create more specific policies, increase the restrictiveness of the more generic policies below until they're either no longer needed and can be deleted, or you can change them to drop or deny. Commit the changes. Note the App Dependency tab after the commit. This page will show policies that use apps that have dependencies that are not included within the policy. You can click on the rule hyperlink to go directly to the rule and add the dependency. I'm going to repeat the process for the domain client approved apps. Commit the new changes. Explore the options available within the dashboard widgets, and then customize to your liking. Use the tabs within the ACC to display trends over time. Periodically review the logs under the Monitor tab for threat, URL, and wildfire activity. Additional trending data is available under the App Scope pages. For details on specific sessions, use the session browser. This ends the deploying machine learning next-gen firewalls for lab or testing.